Hello everybody, welcome once again to the candidate interview series. I am Christopher Mader, here with the 2022 Congressional candidate for the 2nd District of Massachusetts. Here on the M&P Conservative Media Network, Mr. Jeffrey Sossa Paquette, running as a Republican here in the 2nd Congressional District of Massachusetts. Welcome, Jeffrey.
Welcome.
Always good to see you. It has been a little while since you and I have spoken and been on the show before. Thank you again for coming back. I love the digs here. It's great.
Thank you.
Great office. Now, you're close to your home here, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I live about 3 miles down the street.
Right. That's because of family, your obligations to your family. You're very close to your family.
Yes,
I know about that. You and I have spoken a lot before about that. And you were in the daycare business for a long time yourself, weren't you?
Yes, I'm still in the daycare business. I've been in the daycare business for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I sold 2 of my centers when I had gotten sick a couple of years ago, and I just kept the Worcester Center.
Right, I remember you were very sick, you were very ill. You were trying to run for Congress back then too, and you had to
Yes,
drop
I
out
was.
because of that.
And I had to suspend the campaign. Unfortunately, I had a minor stroke, which I make jokes out of now, that a minor stroke saved my life. But we were able to figure out that I had 3 brain aneurysms.
Really?
And so that put me through 4 brain surgeries and a year to learn how to talk again. And as soon as I was able to accomplish all of those things, my last brain surgery was this past December. And I stood the campaign back up at the end of last February.
Fantastic.
So we've been
What a
up and running for
story.
8 months.
That's unbelievable. Good God, I couldn't even imagine going through something like that.
No, it shocked me. At 49 years old, I'm like, what just happened to me? But
And, I mean, you look great, it doesn't look like you've physically suffered anything. Usually with something very tragic like that, I mean, there's visible signs of something that you get most of your faculties back, but there's always something. You just flew right past the finish line, didn't you?
yes, I did. And I didn't do speech therapy or any of those things. I virtually just sat there every day with my laptop, speaking Dragon. I would talk to the computer, it would talk back to me so I could hear the words.
Mm-hmm.
And I just practiced every single day.
What a story,
until I was able to
unbelievable.
get my speech back.
And your family was there helping you through the
Yes,
whole thing?
Julian and the kids were amazing. Julian not only took care of me, he took care of our kids, took care of the daycare. And as soon as Julian would pack the kids up for college for school and drive them to school and head off to the daycare, I sat in my recliner for 6 hours a day, staring at my fish, talking to a computer.
So running your daycare center, I'm sure you're very familiar with a lot of these new mandates that are coming down. I mean, how has it affected your daycare business? How are you reacting to it? How are the parents dealing with it as well? And I want to specifically talk about not only the federal mandates that are soon to come, if they're not here already, but some of them, just even here in Massachusetts, Charlie Baker, they've all jumped on the bandwagon, vaccine mandates, so.
Correct. The nice thing at the size of my daycare is we're not mandated and stuff. I have 2 teachers left that are not vaccinated due to medical reasons, and I certainly will give them that waiver. The rest of my staff is vaccinated. The children that I work with are 5 years old and down, so I have a little bit of concern as I see the vaccines now coming out for 5 to 11-year-olds. And what I say to parents is work with your pediatricians. Figure out what is right for you.
Thank you.
And stuff. It should never be mandated. It is a parent's choice. In reference to my own son, who's 10 years old, he was born addicted to heroin, spent the first 3 years of his life living in a bubble.
Sure.
And so, we hit benchmarks with him every single year. So for me, as it stands right now, I will make the choice not to vaccinate my 10-year-old son. Julian is vaccinated, I'm vaccinated, so is my daughter, so I look at Rylan, he's safe in our house. And I'm not gonna interrupt his growth and make sure we hit his benchmarks based on the way he came into life. So, but that's my choice.
Yeah.
And I certainly shouldn't have to explain that to the schools or really to the public why I'm making that choice.
And it does. It goes back to this whole concept of choice. And everybody on the left always wants to talk about choice, my body, my choice. And it seems as if the left is always compartmentalizing their outrage. Yes, it's your body and your choice, except for this one thing.
Correct.
It's like they always want to make an exception. Dan Bongino has been talking about body sovereignty. and how that if you give in to this mandate, you turn your body over, there's nothing left. There's nothing left that we have. I mean, the government basically owns us.
Correct.
And as a candidate, where is your position on these forced vaccines, forced mandates?
I believe it is choice for everybody. There should be no mandates. The federal government does not have the ability, our
Sure.
Constitution
We don't have the ability, we don't have the
We
authority.
don't have the authority, correct.
Right.
When I look at myself, when I got vaccinated, I didn't talk to my neurologist and then before I did it. They were very upset with me that I had done it because obviously with even the possibility of clotting, I had 2 stents put in my brain, in my arteries in my brain after removing, the aneurysms. So they were very concerned. So I ended up having to go on 6 months worth of blood thinners to make sure everything was okay. So when we talk about the booster shot, now I will not be getting the booster shot, and that's at the recommendation of my neurologist,
Sure.
the surgeons that took care of me, and my own primary care.
But it seems as if these laws that are going to come down, and some of that public hysteria as well, like negates that. Oh, we don't care what your doctor says. We don't. Your own individual thing is not going to matter. Do you have that fear? I have that fear that it's not going to matter what each individual person's own situation is. You're not vaccinated, you can't come in, you're fired from your job.
Right. I really hope some common sense is going to come into this. Even when I look at the state mandate coming from Charlie Baker, when it comes to state employees, if you look around the country, most governors are given the option of testing. The fact that Charlie is not giving them the option of testing, how do our first responders lose their job when we could simply provide testing for them? So I'm watching to figure out what's happening there. We look at UMass, just a mile, actually a couple hundred yards from my office. We've got nurses and doctors and stuff that as of November 1st, they've been put on a 15-day notice and stuff. So on November 15th, if they're still not vaccinated, they'll get suspended for 2 weeks. Then come December 1st, if they're still not vaccinated, they'll lose their job at that point. Whether it's 5%, 10%, or 30%. And so, the question I ask everybody is what happens when 10%, let's just take 10% of our doctors and nurses are not there as we come into wintertime with flu, pneumonia, and all those other things that
Let's extrapolate it to what they're doing in New York City. The trash is piling up.
Right.
Wait till that happens. Wait till that happens in Worcester. Worcester is already a trash dump as it is. Just wait till the city workers. And there's no trash pickup, it's rats.
Right.
You want to talk about healthcare.
Right.
You got rats running around, you got disease everywhere going on in the city because trash doesn't get picked up. What about the streets not getting plowed? Winter's coming.
Winter's coming. I was reading an article this morning and I said, maybe I should learn how to be a plow driver. They're going to be paying up to $155 an hour.
Sure.
And stuff. And the reason for that is they don't have anybody to hire because of the mandates.
You used to be a Toyota dealer. I'm sure you could pick up a Tacoma real cheap.
Well, right now what's happening in the car business because of, chips and everything and stuff, everyone's paying MSRP and above for a new car. The pricing of used cars has gone absolutely through the roof.
Let's cover that on our next topic here. We were just talking earlier before the interview started about the infrastructure bill and the bankruptcy bill that Biden is pushing through. And I've read some stuff where supposedly parts of it have passed, but you would just touch upon already the impact of inflation that's going on, even here in Massachusetts. Who's going to afford their Thanksgiving dinner? I was in the grocery store, we're getting some stuff, and the turkeys, $50, $60, even more. Like if you want something bigger, custom cut, custom made, never mind the standard butterball turkeys that you can buy off the shelf. Something from a custom farm, $100,
Yep.
easily.
$100 easy, and that's being generous. When you look and stuff, I'm going to use my own employees and what we've done through COVID and stuff. Each one of my employees over the last 2 years with COVID, having to raise people's pay and give incentives for people to come to work and do those different things. So let's say the average employee who works for me received $2 more an hour. When you take that $2 more an hour, tax it, and then look at inflation of what my teachers are going through when it comes to gas, food, all of those different things.
It's lost.
Net, they've lost their raise.
Right.
So we could certainly say they're sitting in the same position they were 2 years ago. You know, they have no more money, but no more less money. My concern is not just for them. When I look at our seniors and our veterans, there's no increase coming. And so they're taking it on the chin. That's 17%.
And
It's
wasn't it Joe Biden who years ago voted to tax Social Security benefits and then voted to increase the tax on Social Security benefits? Thank you, Joe. Thanks for that one.
right? You know, I think the other thing too, that, you know, when we look at, you know, the inflation and what we're doing, you know, let's go back to 2010, 2011. The last time gas hit that 359, 389. This is the decisions, you know, when I had all the daycares at that point, Julian and myself had to figure out what was happening is parents could not afford to pay $3.89 per gallon for gas, heat their homes. So what was happening is the parents were talking amongst themselves. You're off on Tuesday, I'm off on Wednesday. And what happened is parents brought full-time enrollment down to part-time. And they started watching each other's kids. And that's how that moved through. But for me and Julian,
It's affecting your bottom line.
it's affecting our bottom line.
Right.
We had 51 full-time teachers at that point.
Oh.
And Julian and myself made a decision that nobody was gonna lose a job. And so Julian and me ran the daycares every day from 7 to 2. Then we would leave at 2, go down to Chipotle's here on Route 9 in Northborough or Westborough. And we rolled burritos 6 days a week from 3 in the afternoon till midnight, bringing in enough money to cover.
You guys took on part-time jobs.
We took on part-time jobs.
No way.
So that our teachers didn't lose their jobs. And for me now, I'm looking 10 years forward, we're back in the same place.
You're gonna have to go back to
Well,
Chipotle.
the good news is I won't have to go back to work at that point. You know, our business is paid for now and stuff, but you just look and see this cycle and you just bring it back. Okay, it was Obama and Biden then.
Sure.
Now it's Biden.
I
and
don't
we're right
understand
back.
this. I don't understand. 2 years ago, we were energy independent. $1.50 for gas here in Massachusetts, lower in other states closer to the refineries and productions. 11,000 plus jobs once Keystone went through. I don't understand where the mentality is in America. I understand where it is in the politicians. They don't care about us. But the mentality in Americans where, oh, this is a good thing. There's actually a segment of our society, this is a good thing.
Right.
They are actually convinced of that. How are you going to reach those types of voters in a primarily Democrat-controlled district in Massachusetts? Well, just Massachusetts alone, Democrat-controlled primarily.
You know, my approach to this is we're just going to take it, you know, head on. We're going to tell people the truth. We're going to show them, like, for example, I just had the oil tank filled up at the house. If I look at last year, when they did the last filling, we were at $1.59 for home heating oil.
Sure.
I paid $3.29 yesterday. And
More than us.
you sit there going, what are the families and stuff going to do? Okay, I can afford a few $100s more a month. But there's lots of families out there that cannot afford the home heat costs, the gas costs, you know, and it really hits down in what we call the blue collar worker and stuff. The families that every single dollar
It hits the poverty line even harder, and you know, Jim McGovern, on your website, there's a great little the video that you put together. Jim McGovern, it shows Jim McGovern in the beginning looking, oh, not only can we build back better, we can build back hunger free. It's like, yeah, good luck with that, Jim. Look, what was Jeffrey just talking about? About the high prices, the middle income can't afford it, low income definitely cannot afford it. So now it's very hypocritical of Jim McGovern to say, oh, we can build back better and hunger free. Well, he supports this bankruptcy bill himself. He's got to rubber stamp it. He's got to vote for it.
Well, no, he's going to rubber stamp it. Remember, he's the chairman of the Rules Committee.
Yeah.
He's writing this legislation.
Thank you.
And, you know, and I think the other thing too, when we look at Jim McGovern, my concerns, whether it be, you know, food insecurities or human trafficking and stuff, Jim McGovern has worried more about Cuba and the mess that was made in Cuba that then translated to Venezuela, having 3 million Venezuelans migrate into Colombia.
Yes.
And then from Colombia, they're coming up and coming into America and stuff. My focus and stuff, or my question to Jim McGovern is, why are you worried about Cuba or Venezuela and stuff instead of the American citizens? We have a $100 billion human trafficking crisis here in America. Let's take care of America before we go worrying about what are we going to do in other countries. We should not be watching children be trafficked from South America into America. I've been there personally to witness it and stuff in Colombia and Venezuela. I have teams in Colombia right now videoing what is happening so that we can bring it home and say to our new immigration population, you left your home countries and you came to America for a better country and opportunities. Why are you sitting by and allowing Democrats or Congressman Jim McGovern to turn America into the countries you escaped? That doesn't make sense. Stand up and say, no, America will not be a socialist country.
Well, as has been going around in the political circles, and some Democrat politicians have stated, is the people who are leaving the Democrat Party, excuse me, and independents who are voting more Republican than Democrat, the saying is, oh, we can replace these people. That's the concept now. Okay, we can lose our Democrat base. We can lose our blue dog Democrat base. We can lose the independents. We'll just replace them.
Right.
And that's the game plan. Everybody knows this. The whole motor voter laws. I've covered this a long time, folks, when I did my show years ago. We covered the motor voter laws, voter fraud, how, look at what happened in 2020 with the mail-in voting. No accountability of any of these ballots that came in, but count them anyway. You've got to count them. And of course, the shenanigans the Democrats always pull, where 3 days later after the polls close, they suddenly find a van full of ballots that miraculously are all Democrat. In Massachusetts, we don't necessarily have a voter ID law. We've got a lot of mail-in ballots, a lot of mail-in voting that's going to happen even this year. How do you plan to counter that or deal with it to make sure that there's some accountability for, at least for you? We know that what the Democrats are going to do. I'm talking about just you, making sure that every one of your votes are counted. Whether you win or lose, regardless. They'll do everything to squash your votes, make your votes disappear. How are you going to make sure that there's accountability?
One of the things and stuff that we're doing right out of the gate, we already have our campaign attorneys on staff.
Good.
Both in Boston and in DC. So, we put that together early. We have an initiative going on right now for voter ID here in Massachusetts. And I think what's disingenuous is to say that people can't get an ID.
Yeah, it's a moot argument.
Let's look at COVID.
Right.
As all of these mandates or these different rules are coming down, you're asking people to go into a restaurant, present your vaccine card and your ID to prove that that's you.
Here comes the hypocrisy, folks. Listen to this man.
So if you have to have an ID to get the COVID shot, and you've got to have an ID to present it to somebody, then we cannot say that we cannot have voter ID. It doesn't make any sense. And I think that's what all of us, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, let's ask the question honestly. In 2021, people can get IDs. Who can't get IDs?
Who can't?
People that came into the country illegally. That is who can't get IDs, right. And they shouldn't be voting anyway.
And even when they're detained and they're in the detention centers, they're having their picture taken, they're having their names written down. There's some sort of identification process going on there at the detention centers.
Right. And I think to be able to say to everybody, I'm very moderate when it comes to immigration. My husband came to this country illegally.
Right.
Unfortunately, he was sex trafficked into the country as a young boy and a young teenager when he got away. And so, but despite those things happening, we still petitioned immigration. Julian could have had asylum extremely easy. That is not the pathway we ended up going down in fear. What we don't understand is migrants that are trafficked into our country. Why don't they talk? Why didn't Julian talk? They're worried about the lives of their families back in their host countries. or I shouldn't say their host countries, their home countries and stuff. So that's why they don't talk. And so Julian didn't turn in who did what. Instead, what we did is we petitioned immigration for Julian to leave America. We asked permission
I remember the
for him
story.
to leave.
Yeah.
He left America, he went back to Colombia, and then flew back to America in Miami to come through a proper port of entry. That took 6 months to get all of this done. They stamped his paperwork. Then we were able to get him his green card. Nothing about marrying an American citizen was going to change anything.
Sure.
DACA wasn't going to change anything. So how do you do it right and stuff? You go back and you come back, and I understand that that's scary. It was scary for me and Julia.
Sure.
We have 2 children.
Something could have happened, it's like, no, you can't come back.
Right, and and I honestly don't.
And if I remember the story that you were telling me before, is there was a snafu there for a while. Wasn't he held up for some reason, something went wrong?
I'll tell you, it was the longest day for me. I was down at Westboro Toyota working, and I get the phone call at 9:30 in the morning that he had arrived in Miami, and they were taking his, his paperwork, his cell phone, everything, and we just had to sit and wait. Well, 5 p.m. comes by, still no phone calls. I still can't connect with him. So I left the dealership, go get the kids. Now we're getting dinner ready. Finally, at 7 o'clock, my phone rings. It's Julian and stuff. He's made it through the immigration. They've stamped his papers, and it was, I'll see you in Boston in a few hours.
Okay.
But, you move through those things. Julian is now just applying for his American citizenship. He stood in line. He could have gotten his citizenship 5 years ago.
Sure.
He felt, not me, and stuff, he felt that if everybody else had to stand in line for 10 years, he would stand in line for 10 years.
Good for him, though.
So now he's putting his application in. And, being married to an American citizen, he only had to wait 3 years. But he still felt, no matter how he came to America, even though the fact that he left and came back,
Right.
that he would still stand in line.
He was literally brought here against his will and then dumped.
Correct. And so,
Now, see, this is where our immigration policy has to be more refined, more streamlined to rescue. These are literally the people that fall through the cracks. To be there to seal up those cracks and take care of those people. But just like most government agencies, and you work in daycare as well, I mean, they're dealing with a lot of the bureaucracy, and a lot of the people end up just getting forgotten. And then when they do what Julian did to try to come back through the right way, they're put into this other category where it's like, oh no, now you have to wait. Now you have to wait your turn.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute, no, I had to go through all of this. Oh no, we have to do this now. The system is completely backwards as far as that immigration policy is concerned. McGovern just loves our open border system, but when it comes to the situation you just described, I mean, where's his position on immigration reform there? What do you know?
I'm going to digress on this a little bit and take you in a different direction on this. And so when we look at immigration, and I take it this way, secure our border is first. That was the promise made under President Reagan.
Right.
And so the deal he made with the Democrats at that point was he would give amnesty, I believe it was for about 8 million people, and that the border would get secured so that this didn't happen again. Fast forward this, basically 30 years, and we're under the same crisis.
Yes.
Except for, here's the way I look at it. Secure the border, and then I want to move right to the DACA recipients. Anybody that is on DACA, we're not talking about kids now, these are adults having their own kids.
Right.
They are the most vetted individuals in America or in our history.
Sure.
Let them get their citizenship. Enough is enough. Now, what do we do with the remaining 20, 30 million undocumented immigrants
that are
here in
everywhere?
America? My answer is really simple. If you're a criminal, we're going to remove you from America. Everybody else...
Let ICE do their job?
Let ICE do their job. Everybody else, you have 1 year. Get in line, fill out the paperwork, and go through the same steps that all those DACA kids had to go through.
Sure.
And once you are able to move through those steps, then you will stand in line and wait 10 years like everybody else.
Sure.
But you first have to go through the same process that those DACA kids went through. And if you're unwilling to sign up after a year to get your name there and your paperwork sent in, then forever hold your peace. You actually don't want to be an American citizen.
Right. And there are ways we can find these people. A common thing that goes on all of the time, companies like Western Union. A lot of these illegals send money home.
Correct.
Well, you have to fill out some sort of form. You have to put some sort of name down there. You have to put some sort of address down there. We have NSA watching our phone calls, watching our videos that we put together. Why can't we have ICE or somebody go to Western Union and track all of these numbers and then find these people? Again, getting back to what you said though, we find person A, and then we find out that they have filled out their paperwork, as you just said. Okay, fine, great. Put them in a different pile. Now we have person B. They never filled out their paperwork. This is a different address than the other paperwork that we have from 2 weeks ago. Obviously, this person is moving around. Who is this person? He hasn't filled out his paperwork. He's working illegally, which you're not supposed to do in the country. Companies are fined. There was Tyson Foods a couple of years ago. They just got nailed.
Yes, they did.
And there are companies here in Massachusetts that get nailed all the time. So who are these companies that are hiring? Find those people and get them out of here.
And I think
Would you agree with that?
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think the other piece of it that we need to look at as Americans is we're not building families anymore because it's too expensive, right? I can't, having 2 kids. God bless everyone that's got more than 2 kids because it's a lot of work. When you think about childcare, right, for 2 children, you're talking about $600-700 a
Right,
week.
sure.
So,
For some people, that's a weekly paycheck.
It is, and so if America's population isn't growing, we need immigration. So the last part of my steps are, once we've secured the border and the hundreds of billions of dollars that are spent, I want to see that money, not spend more money, I want to see that money, one, shifted to stop human trafficking coming into America, and then the other piece of it is flip that money back to the American citizens and give them a reason that they want to have that 3rd and 4th child and stuff so that we're growing our population. If we're unable to do that, then make our immigration system work for the needs of America.
Yeah.
If we need 2 million new immigrant population into America, then say we need 2 million. But secure that border. It shouldn't be 1 million comes in legally and 1 million crosses over the border. We need to know who's coming into America. I look at Julian's family. I could move all of Julian's family here, right? And stuff, but then the question becomes, can we afford to support all of them?
Sure.
And the answer is, no, we cannot.
And can they support themselves?
And stuff, and then when we look at it, could they support themselves? And, my answer is no. So what do me and Julian do? We take care of his family in Colombia. We send money to Colombia every single month, and we make sure that they're okay. That's my responsibility of taking care of my family. But I know that if I brought 12 people here from Colombia, I can't afford to support all 12 of them. And the American citizens should not have to support my family because I chose to bring them here.
It's in the hundreds of billions of dollars a year, government subsidies, and you'll hear, I'm sure Jim McGovern will say it on the campaign trail, it doesn't exist, they're not receiving welfare or food stamps, and that is a blatant lie. If they're not receiving anything, why is there an actual number in the hundreds of billions of dollars a year supporting just, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, illegal immigrants who come into this country?
And stuff, I see it at the daycare level and stuff. We have undocumented parents and stuff that have children that they end up jumping the line and their child gets a voucher so that their child is in my daycare and that bumps an American citizen.
Sure.
When you look at refugees and stuff, now they're not coming illegally in that sense and stuff, but they are still cutting the line. I've got families that have 3 kids. I've got 2 in care. 1 child is still at home because there's a 3-year wait list and we can't get that child care. So what happens? That mother is still not back to work and stuff, but yet all of a sudden I'll get a voucher show up and stuff that we've got a refugee family and they're giving them a voucher. And
really?
So I could look at it as a business owner and say, well, great, you know what, I got another slot taken care of, my revenue is moving up.
But instead of going to the mother that you just described, it's going to this other person.
It's going to another person. So I always raise my hand and say, wait, I've got 3-4 families in my care.
That have been waiting for the last 1.5 to 2 years?
Correct. And so those are the things that we've got to look at and talk about is America is very compassionate. And we're absolutely going to take care of refugees. When we look at Afghanistan If they truly took care of our soldiers and got us through the last 20 years of nation building and stuff, which I completely oppose,
We'll cover that in the next interview.
We've got to, look at that and say, yes, we've got to help them. They helped our soldiers and stuff. But at the same time, you cannot take parents that have been on a 2-3 year wait list and make them wait longer.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be solutions. And we have to be able to talk about it and talk about it in a way that we're not labeling people. You're not being xenophobic or homophobic or racist or any of those things by wanting to have a conversation. It's common sense.
Certainly.
And this is what's lost in our politics or in our government right now is common sense be damned. And then everyone digs into party loyalty instead of loyalty to their constituents. So what I always say
Loyalty to their oath of the Constitution.
Right. I'm a Republican, but I will make the statement today, as I continue to make. If the Republican Party is doing something wrong against the American citizens, I will vote against it. I would vote against the infrastructure bill that just passed last night and said I would not have voted for it. I will not raise the national debt. I'll vote against it. Government does not need more money. We do too much.
Sure.
And that's what we need to do is look at everything, shrink the federal government and return the money to the states where the states and the local government can take care of their population. A one-size-fits-all does not work.
We've only got a couple of minutes left to this interview. I know you're a very busy man. And when we continue the series here with Jeffrey, we'll dive more into infrastructure, the bill itself. But I want to ask very quickly, term limits. On your site, you said you support a constitutional amendment for term limits.
Yes, I do.
I have issues with constitutional amendments, simply because of my own experience interviewing various people who warn about things like a convention of states and an Article 5. Boiling it down, I mean, if we had a more pious government, then I would be all for a convention of states or an Article 5. However, if we had a more pious government, we wouldn't need a convention of states or an Article 5. My issue is if you start introducing things like amendments to the Constitution, with the likes of the Democrat Party that we have today, which are just, in my opinion, full-blown communists, I think that will pose problems for any type of amendment that we put through. Once you open an Article 5, you basically give Congress the keys to the candy store, and they could easily just vote out and rewrite the Constitution itself. How would you specifically try to avoid that?
Well, when I look at term limits, and what's important to me on term limits is, let's take a Jim McGovern. I'm not a politician.
Yeah, how long's he been in? I think I was a kid when he first got elected.
So Jim McGovern got to DC in 1977.
I was a kid.
And so,
I was a kid. I was in high school. I had just entered high school.
Well, I look at it and say, I'm no spring chicken. I'm 51 years old.
Right.
I was 6 years old. Jim McGovern went to DC in 1977 to go to college, became a staffer, and then became our congressman. He has never left DC since he was basically, 18 years old. Move that, and where does